Welcome to the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. I'm your host, FoodTech marketing expert Megan Thomas. FoodTech Stories features the leaders pioneering new approaches to technology, collaboration, and storytelling in the food tech and ag tech space. Food and agriculture changing, and fresh ideas and leadership are needed to sustainably feed the growing global population. Join us every other week as we talk to a founder, operator, or visionary in food and agriculture. This episode of the FoodTech Stories podcast is about forging partnerships, how alt protein startups are teaming up with CPG food companies. Joining me on the podcast today are Cornelie van der Ven, Director of Protein and Plant-Based at Danone, and Alex Worker, Founder and Director of Nutrition from Water, a startup based in New Zealand that creates marine whey from microalgae. Welcome, Cornelie and Alex, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
The first question is for you, Cornelie. Let's start with the work you're doing at Danone. What are you most excited about in the alt protein space?
For Danone, we are really excited about the potential of alternative proteins to address the projected increased need of proteins by 60% in 2050. We believe that we need a diverse range of proteins to meet those protein needs and also to cater for the nutritional requirements and also the consumer needs in this field. One of our key strategies is to promote a flexitarian diet that balances both the animal and the plant-based categories. And within this mindset, Danone is already investing in plant-based protein products. So to support also the increasing need of proteins, we believe that alternative proteins will play an essential role, and therefore we are exploring the use of ingredients from biomass fermentation and for biotech. And both technologies enable us to reduce emissions as well as decrease the use of water in it. So therefore we think it's really an interesting field to look into.
Thank you for that setup. I'm interested in learning more about how you're working together to create the innovation in the food system. Alex, let's turn to you. You've chosen to work with a large strategic in Danone. And what really drove that decision for your organization?
Good question, Megan. Quickly framing our story in Nutrition from Water. I'm a New Zealander. We grew up essentially in a land of dairy, milk, and honey. A lot of what we did in New Zealand was actually supplying for globally relevant health and nutrition companies like Danone. I spent the first 10 years of my life moving around the world, building dairy farms and working out what global customers needed in terms of high quality, safe nutrition. The challenge I found was when we were building farms in China and elsewhere is when you price in all the externalities of farming supply, you actually pay for the true price of water, greenhouse gases, social responsibility around the farms. Suddenly that milk price actually needs to become a lot more expensive. That learning in China that really then set me up with Impossible Foods, where I met Nick Heller, employee number one in Impossible Foods, and I helped him for a few years scale up a climate technology. The challenge I had with that business was a lot of it came down to soil hemoglobin, a great technology, but there's actually quite hard to move across borders. And also the cultural aspect. When you're introducing a new technology, both your B2B buyers, your global partners, even back to the household, people want to know what's in it. Is it safe? Nutrition from Water started 4 years ago from New Zealand, working with the largest Pacific Ocean strain library of microalgae with our leading marine science park, Hawthorne Institute. And we really went on a journey to create natural, non-GMO, complete nutrition from water. We're at a stage now, 4 years in, where we've got a pretty clear idea on the technology strategy, and we've been validating that at a benchtop, moving into what we call demo production. And now it's really all about understanding. You spend a lot of time on product and supply, but it doesn't really matter unless you have customers that really know their consumers and that of the highest standard. Danone is one of those dream partners. So through MISS are really excited to be here with Danone and other ecosystem partners exploring co-development, co-solutions, co-exploration. We're at a stage now where we're really listening for what our customers want, trying to build partnerships around what we call joint development agreements to go on a journey together, and then to bring affordable natural nutrition to life that can end up in the global south, in Africa, and feed a lot more people better nutrition.
Thank you. That's a wonderful, very comprehensive answer. So from your point of view, Cornelie, what do you think makes for a successful partnership between a large CPG or strategic organization and a startup?
I think a successful partnership between Danone and any startup is that there is a mutual benefit, basically. I think this is the key point. So we have to have a solution from the startup that helps really Danone developing their products and bringing superiority to the markets. This success really depends on introducing healthy and delicious products into the markets. So this is what we are looking for, and I think it's very important that at the end there is a mutual benefit for both, that both Danone and the startup can grow.
And what types of mutual benefits would you be looking for?
The technology that the startup is bringing is new to us. It's something that we cannot develop by ourselves. It can bring something that we cannot bring today. So I think this is the most important, that we find solutions, that it's technically feasible to implement the startup solution in our product, and that it brings finally benefit to the consumer and also helps us to reach our sustainability goals.
How long have your organizations been working together?
Since really the beginning of the Mr. Growth Hack. We're here in San Francisco as a group, really for the showcase. But over the last 3 months, thanks to Mr., which is an open innovation designed or partnership, along with Danone and a few other solution providers, ourselves as a startup has been part of a team that's been meeting every couple of weeks to explore what solutions work for affordable nutrition, particularly with focus on the global south and Africa. And then we've all had different functional leads and experts build together. So really the last week we've been in San Francisco in the labs, in the kitchen, designing solutions, and then this afternoon we showcase our ideas together.
Wonderful. So really a multifaceted partnership. I love the Mista ecosystem, and when I'm learning about it, I'm looking forward to tasting some of the unique products at the Growth Hack. What has surprised you, Alex, the most about working with a large organization like Danone?
It all comes down to people and trust. We have one of the largest nutrition and health platforms in the world with Danone. Many decades of experience and specialization, and one of the best brand platforms in the world, but also technology platforms in the world. Trying to do this as a startup and approaching Danone, almost like knocking on a door, it would be very cold, and I think would be incredibly irrelevant. We're starting again as a startup, even from my experience as a corporate. If you have the right trust in place through the right personal connections with the right functions, suddenly there's this open door. And then there becomes this possibility for exploration, because we have to go on a journey together. My learning with Danone is that incredibly progressive organization. I mean, we were just hearing about the view on flexitarianism. I am a flexitarian, but also I'm training my children to be flexitarians. And so there's a whole bunch of different occasions and then changing needs around what that approach is. I know that we're only going to be a small part maybe of a wider Danone and partners umbrella. But that's a role that we can play really well, and that's focused on really efficient, complete, safe, affordable nutrition from microalgae. It starts with co-design, co-exploration, and it's all around people and trust. And then I think as maybe we progress, there's going to become moments in time where we have to make joint decisions. Once science and technology is validated, and maybe there's a regulatory fit, and there's a market approach, there needs to be a business case that makes sense for everybody. And so I imagine that's still months away. And so as a startup, we're setting in for a marathon, not a sprint, but also being very clear-eyed that we have to make choices around resources and focus. The signals are incredibly warm, but it comes back to actually the individual people that we're working with on behalf of an incredible company.
I'm going to shift over a little bit toward food tech ingredients and acceptance and consumers. We talked a bit about consumers and channel partners and such. In terms of Danone and how you approach this field, there's been a lot of data gathered around technology and understanding of technology or lack of understanding of technology with consumers and a desire for clean label products, natural products, right? Consumers vary greatly. What have you learned at Danone about consumer acceptance of some of these food tech ingredients? And then how do you work with a startup like Alex's firm and actually kind of bring that to the benchtop, if you will?
From the consumer perspective, I think it's really important to talk about the benefits to the consumer, not so much about the ingredients. Because for consumers, it's very difficult to understand ingredients. For the consumer, it's important to understand how this product fits with their daily diet and what type of benefits it brings to them. Consumers are not really thinking about sustainability. This is not the reason for them to buy a product. We see this in many market researches that have been performed. So what is really important to get cost right, to get taste right, and to be clear on the benefit that it brings to the consumer. And then the technology, something we like to think about as technologists, but it's not the key point to communicate about. It's really the benefits that is important. So we should see it more holistically. And then the other question about what is important to work together with a startup. It's really important for us, next to the technology, is to have the trust in the startup about their implementation plan. How do they think about scaling up? How do they think about having the regulatory framework correct? How can they ensure the consistency of supply? Because if we want to implement it in our brands, then the volumes will grow. How will the startup supply growing with it? So we cannot have a disruption of our supply of the products because we have a disruption of the ingredient supply. So this is very important that we take into account. Then it should indeed complement our capabilities. The unique ability of startups is to innovate in a way that larger companies cannot. So they have an entrepreneurial possibility for corporates is less easy in some cases. So there we can really complement and innovate together.
And in terms of consumer acceptance, has Nutrition from Water done any consumer insight work, or have you been working with Danone or other partners?
We see ourselves really building a category rather than a product. We're not sitting here as a bunch of scientists trying to sell a technology, and we know that we have to build a new nutrition category, which is really about abundant nutrition from water utilized in a non-extractive technology method. Find brilliant microscopic algae, single-cell organisms from the wild. We use natural mutagenesis to produce and ferment, just like a Heineken or a brewery process. And then we use DSP, downstream processing, quite similar to a dairy whey technology set, to isolate good functional nutrition, whether it be proteins and fibers, or other specialized ingredients. We've been thinking about that and doing that for the last 4 years. But now as we're building this category, which we call Nutrition from Water, hence our company name, we know that we can't do that alone. Never in a million years will we have the same level of consumer insights that a Danone or some of the other partners in the Mr. network have. So then the question becomes the what and the how. We want to build a new global nutrition category at scale that would work for a Danone value chain and supply chain around the world. We think about building factories that can produce at least 16,000 metric tons per location. That's the same size as a large dairy protein factory. So that's kind of our first step. Our second one then is, yes, understanding consumers, but not having the firepower to do that all ourselves, because it takes a lot of time and money. It all comes down to partnership. And it's not many, it's few. But what I call it's a category coalition approach, where it's working with global leaders in their domain and maybe having somewhere between 2 and 6 of them around a table, just like what we're seeing here at Mr., to actually develop back from consumer the right category strategy or the right market that then everybody can underwrite by way of their own business cases. I've got a goal of having this first production center online in 4 years. But that's where working with these partners is really, really important for us, because we're actually trusting our B2B partners to understand their consumer. In the case of affordable nutrition, do we try to go into India first? And what part of India, being its own subcontinent and with its own cultural and regulatory and consumer requirement? Or do we go into an Indonesia for its own purpose under the growing food plan strategy of the Indonesian government? There's a new mandate there. That could be an opportunity. Or in a place like Kenya, we're designing solutions for fat-filled milk powders and other nutrition vehicles. And the question is, who's the best to partner with to grow from Africa? I don't have all the answers, but I know that we can work them out in partnership and working with partners that really understand their consumers and their market, and we build together in coalition.
Thinking of it from a category perspective is fascinating. I think that can be quite challenging. I imagine the rewards would be tremendous. So I look forward to seeing and hearing about how your firm does that and working together. This has been a great conversation. So I'm going to ask each of you the same question. I'd love to start with you, Cornelie, first. Looking to the future, what are you most looking forward to?
I think in this perspective of this biomass opportunity, we really envision a world where alternative proteins are really part of the solutions to make impacts on the global nutrition, but also impacts from a sustainability perspective. And it would be great if we would see products on the shelves that really enable us to bring this healthy foods to as many as people as possible in an affordable way. One of the developments that can help there is, as I said, is this biomass protein. I really see it as a way to enable us to have affordable production, local production that can also save on transport costs, so that we can bring our mission to life. I think this is really the main important thing. So we would really see biomass proteins as one of the elements of the protein solution. It's not the only solution. It is one that can help us in the total protein worlds. And we should really see the different sources as being complementary to each other. And it's not one or the other. It's like with animal and plant-based, as I mentioned, we are a flexitarian company because we believe that there's space for all, meeting different consumer needs, but also supply, with the ability to supply also new consumer experiences. We really see this as one of the future legs, I would say, of the protein supply.
To continue to feed a growing global population, we're going to need a variety of technologies to get us there.
And I think the beauty of the sustainability of this solution is really making it powerful, even if consumers are not there yet. It will be really important for the future.
Mm-hmm. That's exciting to bring them along. It's going to be exciting. That was very well articulated. So in terms of looking to the future in this space, Alex, what are you most looking forward to?
At the moment, even we're talking the pejorative term of alternative protein instead of complementary protein. That mindset that was just shared is just so refreshing at a global level because, again, we all have choices and it's all and, in my view, being allowed to have your Impossible Burger and then a delicious pasture-raised steak in the same day and not feel guilty because it's back to what you feel like and what's available and what you can afford. I think that was a really interesting point. And then I think grounding back to our mission and my mission with Nutrition from Water is I think we have a technology that done well in category coalition partnership can unlock new nutrition for parts of the world that won't have access to complete nutrition from dairy, from cows. Rabobank in 2022, they forecasted the global dairy gap to be 31 million metric tons of nutrition by 2030. And it's a serious issue. The only dairy players look at that and go, hey, it's quite a good place to be and we get more margin for our limited or dropping supply. And it's quite both a cynical but also a realistic outlook from a commercial perspective. Yes. The challenge I have with that, back to this complementary view, is it also means that there's millions of people around the world that won't get access to quality, complete dairy-like nutrition. I need to solve that with partners. And we can do that with this technology. So the question now becomes, how do we scale up this platform to unlock and solve that 31 million metric ton gap by 2030? Because that's only 5 years away, going fast. If you're looking at malnutrition around the world, 400 million on one reading. If you then factor in nutrition requirements or lower than optimal nutrition, you're saying there's 1 billion people on this planet today that aren't getting sufficient daily nutrition. There's no time to waste. I'm really hopeful and excited about the future, but we need to get moving. I'm up for it. I know the team is, but we can't do it alone.
Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I enjoyed our conversation. I wish you continued success in your partnership.
Thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform and keep an eye out for our bi-weekly episodes. I'm your host, Megan Thomas, founder of Ladris 17. FoodTech Stories is edited by TJG Media.